in place, huge databases, for example, then they can monetize. And people don't wait long enough. The other thing you can do is have a very strict moral code within your business, a culture. Culture will eat strategy for breakfast every single time. You've got to make sure that your culture in the company is client-centric. A good example of this is Amazon. I'm just saying that they do actually focus on their customers as a culture. And I think that a lot of people are too busy, for example, thinking about how they can get money out of their customer and not thinking how they can bring value. And if you want to win, bring value. You want loyalty, bring value. You want them to follow you, promote you, share you on their stories, care about you, talk about you when you're not in the room, then show them some love. It sounds simple, but people don't do it because they're too busy not waiting for the payoff and too busy not installing a culture of patience, a culture of caring about your customer. And then the final thing is luck. Now, luck is not a subjective thing. Luck, I have discovered, is hackable. And you can hack luck 3 ways. First, be persistent. And what I mentioned earlier about purpose and loving what you do will help you be persistent. You have to outlast other people. When I launched my company Fluid in Hong Kong, I had so many competitors, but slowly but surely, they all shut down, went bankrupt. They didn't care like I did. And I think that whole luck thing is about persistence. That's number 1. Number 2 in hacking luck is know your destination. What is success for you? What will make you happy? What do you want? Big company, small company? And by the way, a big company is much easier to run than a small company. Aim for a big company is my recommendation. But that's my opinion. It might not work for you. So I suggest you define success for yourself. Today, success for me is having the time to take my son to school and be able to pick him up. It's having time to do the exercise I want to do. That's how I define success. So I never sell hours. And we'll come to that in a little bit, why you should never sell hours. But luck is hackable. You have to be persistent. You have to know your destination. And finally, you have to learn to take risk. Be careful with sayings out there trying to trick you into options that are not true. So the worst one is the harder you work, the luckier you get. That is not true. That is a lie designed to make you work hard. If it was true, every nurse in this country would be a millionaire. It is not true that working hard equals success. What equals success is taking risk. You have to learn to take risk. Lean into fear. Learn to love fear. Embrace it. And then you can take more risk. And the more risk you take, the luckier you get. Learn to build culture into your businesses about the long term and learn to hack luck. You will win. The secret to it all is learning to accept that you could lose everything and it doesn't matter. You've got to be willing to risk it all. Take a chance and go for it. Do not rush. Do not see this as anything but a marathon. It's not a sprint. Enjoy the journey. Don't rush. No one can beat you if you do it. So delayed gratification is key. Brands like Facebook and Instagram, although I'm not a fan necessarily of these platforms, they personify this concept. They did build massive user bases, but they didn't monetize them at the beginning. They waited. They just kept building value in their platforms for the users, and more people kept signing up. And they didn't actually monetize for a very long time. I think Facebook was nearly 10 years before it started making money. And although I'm not suggesting you wait 10 years, and those companies have different investment structures, which we'll talk about a bit later, it is important to understand how important this is to building a successful long-term business. Do not think about making money straight up. Build a brand, not a business. And those businesses like Facebook and Instagram, they waited a decade before they started monetizing. And as soon as they started monetizing, Facebook in particular, it started to decline as a brand. Less people liked it. Too many ads on the screen, too many annoying buttons that didn't have any relevance to them because they were suddenly trying to make the client happy, the advertiser, and no longer focused on the user in the same way. So be careful. That is how you build massive economic moats. People like Google, similar. At the beginning, no revenue. YouTube, at the beginning, no revenue. Focus on building something that has value to people. Delayed gratification is one of the secret weapons in building a sustainable, large, and successful business that you love. Next up, how to lose. It might sound like a strange title, but it's the number one thing I've noticed that people don't learn to do that doesn't allow them to be successful. This all stems back probably to school, where you were told that success was getting an A. It's not. Success is actually accepting failure, learning to bounce back from failure, embracing failure, having learnings from the businesses that I have been involved in that have failed, have allowed me to be successful. I guarantee you, if I hadn't lost £1 million on doing comic book business, I wouldn't be rich or successful today. I needed to learn how to fail. I needed to accept losing. It's key. And so how do you build the stamina and the ability to lose? The first thing you realise, number one, don't let things own you. If you let things own you, you are controlled by the very thing that's meant to bring you pleasure. You have to learn to lose those things and not care about those things. The second thing, to lose, you need to let your short-term ego go. Now, ego is actually a very powerful motivator, and there are different types of ego. The ego I'm talking about here is driving around in the right car to give an image to people that don't care about you that you are successful. Do not worry about this. Learn to enjoy looking like you're a loser. Let people underestimate you. It is so powerful to be underestimated by your competition, even by your customers, because if they think you can't deliver and you do, then brilliant. Do not worry about losing. Learn to be a D student. Love to fail. That's why 80% of A students end up working for D students, because A students are scared to lose. They don't want to lose. They always want to get an A. They always want to be seen as the smartest person in the room. Don't worry about it. Learn to lose. Learn to embrace getting a D. And getting a D in business
Kaya naka-disable. The game will be unavailable on 5/14/1330 PET. Ano ba yung PDT?
means take your time. Don't let someone else decide whether or not you're successful or not. Do not let anybody else tell you how to do things. And ironically, power up your ego in a different way. An internal ego that tells you you're not a loser. You know where you're going. No matter what people judge you based on the car that you're driving, or where you're living, or what you do with your day, don't let them decide that you're a loser. Let them think whatever they want. Learn to love losing. Learn to embrace failure. I promise you, if you think that the worst is if you try something and you lose everything, it doesn't matter, you can go again, you will succeed. I guarantee it. Next up, I want to teach you something practical. How to do a mind map. So many people teach you in business to do a business plan. Forget that shit. There is no use for a business plan. What you want to do is map out where your business could go, how it could go, and understand the different directions of which to take your business. And I'm going to go through how to do a mind map next. Now, I have never seen anyone teach anybody how to do a mind map. And the reason I think that no one teaches this is because there's no template to sell you. There's no product to sell you around. A business plan has a million ways to make money out of you, and none of it works. These business plan things actually kill companies. I've seen people write massive business plans, stick to it, and die. A mind map, however, will cost you nothing to do and actually leaves you nimble and free to explore where the business can go. And it's so simple. It starts in the middle with your hobby. Whatever that is, what you love to do. Second part of my map is the business. I can't spell, but don't judge me for that. Luckily, I know what I'm doing in business. What is the business? So what is your hobby? What do you love to do? And ideally, it now links to the business. Now, with the business, and I'm going to use my company as an example, hopefully it translates into what maybe your idea is. But in my business, which is what we call Free Humanity, the name probably gives it away, what we want to do. We want people to be free, to do what they love. So within Free Humanity, this is what I did when I first started the business 4 years ago. I looked at different ways that I can make the business work. So, off here, I wrote podcast. Right? Actually, as I mentioned earlier, this is one of the first things I actually did. So from a podcast, what comes off it? Well, I built a network. Right? I'm now doing a mind map of something I actually have already done to illustrate how a mind map works when you're building out a business of value. So one of the benefits of doing a podcast was a network. In my case, I managed to interview over 200 of the world's most successful entrepreneurs, which are now part of my life and help me with what I'm doing, help you on helpbank.com. That was one of my ambitions, and it was on my mind map network. The second thing was brands. I realized if I did a podcast, I could probably make revenue from brands. Now, with a mind map, you can get bigger and bigger and bigger with mind maps. There's no stopping how big a mind map can get. Just like your brain is infinite in its ability to think, mind map is also infinite. And when I wrote the original mind map out for my business, I thought brands, and then I started listing them. So in my case, GoDaddy, Type Banking, Adobe. These were brands that I felt were a fit with what I wanted to do. Give people the ability to start their own business, be free, do what they love. So I listed out all the brands that I could work with. I also listed in my original mind map, and I didn't do it at the beginning, but it ended up becoming part of what I did, was an app. An app that would focus on free help for people. Now at the time, I didn't have the name that I now have, which is helpbank.com, but I knew that I needed to build a scalable way of giving people knowledge. Now what I didn't know back then that I know now, a quick bit of insight, is that app is overused as a word. It's actually not an app that you need to build at the beginning for most platforms. You need to build a web-based platform. Why? Well, if you build an app, you have to go in the App Store or in the Google Play Store. You get restricted by one of those two locations. So people that have a Samsung phone can't access the Apple Store to download your app. Why would you, when you launch something, restrict people from getting access to it? Plus, if it's web-based, people can just log in straight from a web browser, any web browser. That aside, I realized in my early days, I needed to do an app. And from that, I would do free help. And from that, I would be able to connect the network that I built in the podcast to the free help. So the people that I interviewed in the podcast, the knowledge that I was capturing in their case, I could connect now, that network being built via the podcast, to the help on the platform. This is how it's actually played out. The next thing I spent time thinking about was team. And on my map, I thought about who I actually need. Now, because I knew I was going to do a podcast, I knew that I needed an editor. But I also know my weaknesses, so I know I need an accountant, someone who's going to take care of the admin. These are things that I don't enjoy doing, so I know what to do. But I also realised with the network that I built through the podcast that I can have partners. So it's not just employees, but partners. I can link to the team. Again, working with the people that I'd spoken to on the podcast, I could connect them. People that were going to work on the app, I could connect them. Although they're not necessarily on my payroll, they are people that perhaps are connected to my mission, want to help people, and they can become part of my extended team. Now, within the team structure, I can also start thinking about things like if I have an editor, maybe that editor hires editors, or I hire editors, but you can start breaking down what you actually need within your team. Right now, as a mind map, you start, in my opinion, with what your hobbies are, what you enjoy doing. You're then building a business around it, and then you're thinking about different things that this business is going to need. Now, one of the things that I spent a lot of time thinking about that I haven't yet done, but will be coming soon in my platform, was what else I could do that would scale the business, give it what it needed resource-wise, without necessarily me being involved in it. And at that time, back 4 years ago, the word was merchandising. So I wrote down merchandising. Now, I think it's actually evolved now, it's beyond merchandising, but from that I wrote down, of course, what everyone was doing 4 years ago, t-shirts and caps, that sort of stuff, right? Stuff that, maybe the word free humanity would look pretty cool on. And I thought about, in those days, things like sweets and products that perhaps we could launch. And I wrote down basically any way, merchandise-wise, we could make money. Now, what's interesting is I'm about to launch a sweet brand called Busy's. It's taken 4 years to get to this part of my map, but it was on there. It was always on there. And ironically, when I was building team, if anyone said to me when I was interviewing them they had some experience with sweet business, I made a note and kept them as someone maybe could help us in the future. Same with merchandising. Anytime I spoke to anybody that was perhaps looking at starting a t-shirt brand or working on building product, I'd see if perhaps they wanted to work with me in the future. Because once you know in your mind map one of the things that's going to come up in the future, you can look out as you're building other things for the very thing that's going to help make that happen. So this is a mind map. It is literally mapping out all the different things and different ways your business can go. It's fun, it's simple, there's no template you can download and pay someone for, you don't need it. And the beautiful thing about a mind map is you're not fixed. You can start adding bubbles and adding things as things evolve, as people and the world change. You can start adding things and connecting the different dots between parts of your business. Something a 20-page document will never let you do because it's too linear. So that's a mind map. I hope it's a useful practical tool for you going forward. How to find purpose. Now, this word purpose might sound woo-woo. They don't teach you it at school, in my opinion, for a reason. Because if you understand purpose, you're very unlikely to work for someone else. Purpose is a very personal thing. You can find other people with purpose, you can find your tribe, you can be free. But finding purpose is not an easy thing, and it's not something you've been given any of the tools in which to make it happen. So what is the first step in finding purpose? And it's a very obvious step that people do not do. Think about it. Now, the problem is, if you say you're thinking about purpose, people might laugh at you. Other people try to throw silly jokes out there like 49, and they'll throw you off. Or purpose will get so complicated in your head, because you've not really thought about it before, you'll give up and go back to your old ways. You need to think about purpose. What is your purpose? We used to live in tribes of 5,000, and we used to work on a method called give without take, not give and take. We used to help each other because it would make our tribe better, not because we'd make money from it. You ask me for help, I will give it to you for free. The world will be a better place. I'd get better at giving you that help for free. I'd become an expert at giving that help for free. Eventually, when I'm not in the room, people will talk about me and what I do because I've become so good at helping people. But I think today that doesn't fit the narrative of working at a call centre, picking up the phone and doing what you're told in a factory that Henry Ford created. So when the school system was developed, the word purpose wasn't included in any of it. They asked the wrong question of you. What are you going to do when you grow up? Is what schools say. That's not the right question. What you should be asked is, what problem are you going to solve? So the second step in thinking about and finding, hopefully, purpose is what problem matters to you. Now at first, nothing might spring to mind. If something has jumped into your mind, then great. In a minute I'm going to explain how you action that. But if it hasn't jumped into your mind, start thinking about what problems have actually affected you, big or small. Now it can be really simple, like the banks aren't open early enough for you, or the swimming pool you wanted to go to doesn't let you swim the time you want. It might sound silly, but you start thinking about problems that bother you and your brain wakes up the entrepreneur muscle in your brain that helps you figure out how to solve that problem. Now, it might be that the bank's not opening on time isn't a problem you're going to solve, but if your brain starts thinking about that problem and how it can solve it, you might begin to understand how to find purpose. The third thing you can do is start breaking down how to make your life and that purpose match. Now, matching what you do in your day and your actual purpose is often easier than you think. I've met hundreds and hundreds of people who tell me what their dream is, and it turns out that their dream is often just 3% difference from their existing life. You know, between chimpanzees and humans, and only 3% difference in the DNA. And often, for example, I met someone that wants to do their own catering business. They're working in someone else's catering business. They're just missing this video in their life to figure out how to turn what they feel is their purpose to make cakes for someone and make them smile and own that business. That has the opposite skill to you, but, and this is very important when looking for a co-founder, I'm going to put it as number 2, has the same moral code. This process of finding a co-founder is pretty much the process of probably finding a partner in life. You're going to spend a lot of time with this person. I can go into it a little bit more. It's quite a complicated thing, but there is one quick hack on this I can give you. Whenever I'm trying to find out whether or not someone's good, I don't care about money. I care about reputation. So I don't want to accidentally end up working with someone that all they really care about is money, and I have this test to check. I will say to them, what if from this day until you're 70, so let's say you're 30 now, in the next 40 years, you'll have the most amazing life. 3 houses, 1 in New York, 1 in Hong Kong, 1 in London. Anywhere you go, people will love you, private jets, everything you need for the next 40 years. That's your life. And in 40 years' time, however, there is a catch. You'll get to 70, and then everyone will find out that you're a financial fraud, that you tricked people to get here, and that your life generally will be very different. People will look at you differently. Maybe then you'll die, and maybe it doesn't matter. But that's your life. Do you want to take the deal? I'm surprised how many people say yes. I would say 50-50. People say yes, they take that deal. They'll have 40 years of a good life for a bad reputation at the end. Be careful with people like that, is what happens in my brain, right? Because that is the Murdoch story. That is what Murdoch did. His son's committed suicide. His name is in the dirt. No one ever wants to hear that name again in their life, and a lot of people were hurt. So I use open questions and philosophy to figure out whether or not it's someone I want to work with, and you should do it too, because you don't want to be in partnership with someone that doesn't care in the same way that you care. I'm not here to judge what is right and what is wrong. I'm here to tell you how you can check that what's right for you aligns in your business, in your culture of your business, and more importantly, in your day-to-day personal life. So you've identified what you love and what you don't love. You've checked the moral code in every way you can of the person you want. You've drawn lines in the sand what you're not willing to do, and you know what this person looks like. The final thing is post-it. Now, post-it is very simple. You start telling people you're looking for this person. You post it on LinkedIn. You post it everywhere. You ask people. You make it clear this is what you're looking for. You look out for it in cafes, when you're out having dinner, when you're at the supermarket. You look out for this person because they're out there. You just have to have your eyes wide open. Of course, you can go on helpbank.com and ask people if they know someone like this. You can use the tools around you to get what you need. But ultimately, you've now set yourself up with every chance of finding a co-founder. Now, you're going to have to sort out the equity structure and get that right. I'm going to come to that in a minute. But that is how you find a co-founder. And in my opinion, it's one of the most powerful things you can do to ensure success in your business. Next up, how to sell. Now, anybody can sell. It's a system, it's a philosophy, and anyone can do it. I don't care your background. You can be an introvert. You can still sell and understand the systems of selling. And if you are presently selling, I promise you, you are missing a few tricks that I'm going to try and help you with now. First up, how to sell is not what you have been taught. It is not, here's my product, this is how much it is, and this is what it does. The first thing in sales that you need to learn, and the number one thing I learned through the hard way of doing it, is sell the sizzle, not the steak. So what does that mean? Well, let's pick one of the best products ever sold, Apple products. Steve Jobs used to always set up events where he'd invite 3,500 people into a room, all the right tech reporters, all the right people, and he would then present to them the sizzle. He would not say, here's a phone with an Intel processor that has this and has that. He would talk about how this product was for the game changers, for those that wanted to do things differently, for the creative types. He was very specific about what the sizzle is. He didn't sell the steak. Now, in that process of selling, there's a couple of other lessons that Steve Jobs teaches us. Of course, he doesn't sell to millions through social media. He picks a community, 3,500 people in a room. He sells to them. He connects to them. He talks to them. And they go and talk to the rest of the world. Getting someone on your side selling for you is one of the most powerful ways to sell. The number one salesperson in my last company was my accountant. Why? Because I gave her the tools to sell. I told her what we did and how we did it. I showed her the sizzle through the numbers. We helped clients be more successful. We helped businesses starve off bankruptcy. We made sure companies did well. And she was proud of that. She would sell the sizzle. She'd sit with her other CFO friends at lunch and she'd say, we saved a company from going bankrupt. We made one company an extra £1 million a month they didn't expect. She would tell people the outcome. She wouldn't say, oh, I work for Fluid and we have marketing ideas. That's not exciting. She talked about the results. She talked about the philosophy, the sizzle. The second element of learning to sell is understand the process of selling. So many people don't. So many people start on what I call the third step. And you need to do 2 steps first before you ever start implementing the third step in sales. So the first step in any sales is understand your customer. Now it sounds so obvious and I'm shocked how many people don't do it. I often get emails that say, Dear John, or they say, Dear Simon, I really love what you're doing X, and they haven't actually researched what I'm really doing. However, when someone sends me something and understands what I'm doing, is clear on how they can bring value to me, I sit up and I listen. And that is the number one thing that people don't do in the first step of sales. Enough research. They do not spend enough time understanding if the person they're talking to actually needs them. They spend way too much time selling to people that don't actually need what they've got to sell. Don't waste your time on people that don't need what you've got. Focus on the people that do need what you've got. First step is, do they need you? Get to know them. The second step in this 3-step process to get any sales done is understand the person you're working with in the context of, do you like them? This
Last night. Job.
element of sales is so
Ano naman kasi. Why would you post something like that online and also I think he's an also him or something also as to be human. Filipinos don't like to think like that.
Fique em pé, coloca a mão para trás. Fique em pé e coloca a mão para trás.
Okay lang kahit isinilang kung hindi kagwapuhan yung mukha. Tanggap ko naman yan eh. At least malaki ang aking tip. Okay lang kahit isinilang kung hindi kagwapuhan yung mukha. Tanggap ko naman yan eh. At least malaki ang aking tip. Okay lang.
I pray for the person.
There's a Bible verse I wanted to
Bakit may mga mayayaman o super yaman na nagsusuicide, yung iba malungkot, nadidepress, no? Bakit nga kaya? Pinag-isipan ko yan at marami din ako natutunan dyan. Kasi na-observe ko din na marami din namang mahihirap pero masaya sila. Meron ding mayayaman na malulungkot. Bakit ganun? Nagkaroon ako ng conclusion na hindi yung yaman na nagpapasaya sa tao, kundi na-attain niya yung mga pinangarap niya. Halimbawa, ang pangarap niya is maayos na pamilya, healthy lahat, na magkakasama, nag-iibigan. Tama na sa kanya yung masaya siya, di ba? Ayaw ba ng Diyos na yumaman tayo? Siyempre gusto niya, di ba? Ayaw niya na naghihikaos tayo. Wala siyang kagustuhan na maghikaos ang kanyang nilalang. Kasi siya may-ari ng lahat. Sobrang yaman ng Diyos, no? Na naglikha ng universe, no?
If someone's got an overactive thyroid gland, students, what would you put on the thyroid gland to slow it down? Ice. That's so simple, isn't it? It's so simple. But one thing that really can help the thyroid gland to control or balance out is high intensity exercise. High intensity exercise wakes up that thyroid gland. Often thyroid glands, whether it be under or overactive, are iodine deficient. And you can do a very simple iodine test. You can get iodine